Hey everyone. I've been hanging out in some ADHD groups lately, and I hadn't been in them for a while because I don't really struggle with my ADHD the way I used to. And I've been going back lately because some friends of mine are in the group and they've asked me to come in and kind of share my perspective and talk a little bit about what it is that I do. But really, what I wanted to come on today and share with you is the idea that. Um, I feel a lot of the sense that, personal failings from some of the members of the group that, why can't I just do this? Why can't I just do that? And what I really want to stress to you is that ADHD is not your fault. It's not a personal thing. And I don't care what your grade two teacher said, that you're lazy or that you're not paying attention or, you're daydreaming or you're too loud or you talk too much or whatever it is that we were told when we were children that we internalized about ourselves. I want you to know that that is actually not the truth. What I'd like you to look at this is as if you were an animal taken out of your natural habitat and put in a different natural habit, a different habitat and expected to thrive. So, what you would see in those circumstances is that you're going to do your best, but you're not going to be able to fit in like all of the other kids who are in their natural habitat and are able to do the things that we're being asked to do that we just can't do because we grew up in a hot climate and now all of a sudden we're put in the Antarctic and trying to struggle along and survive. So, I want to talk first of all about what is the difference between uh, who we are and what neurotypical people experience. And again, if it's not failings, then what is it? And this seems to be a really big mystery. And the fact of the matter is, it's not. So there's a couple of things that we can't really do much about. We have some brain differences, but one of the big things that we can have an effect on is an enzyme, a genetic enzyme called COMT. And this really affects our dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter that I'm sure that you're all familiar with, dopamine. And for us, we have at least one. Most of the time, we have at least one and perhaps two variations, or what used to call mutations, on this COMT enzyme. And that means that we break down dopamine at a much lower rate than people who have no mutations on this enzyme. And so we are constantly in a high dopamine state. And what does it mean when we feel high dopamine? Well, we're maybe a little bit manic. We're have lots of ideas. We have bursts of energy. We have impulsivity. We want to go, go, go. We're very motivated. And we're very engaged with things that are new and novel and interesting and urgent. And so when we look at children, or specifically children, because this is when we develop our ideas about ourselves, we look at children who are experiencing those kinds of motivations. Well, that doesn't really get along well with being in a classroom, right? Where you're supposed to sit down and listen attentively and do your work very neatly and don't talk and don't look at the person next to you. We just weren't really made for that environment. And so what happens is that we end up getting in trouble, right? Our teachers will say, stop talking, stop fidgeting, sit down. And so we internalize that because we're good people, right? And we don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to be annoying to anybody. We want to try to go along to get along. We're not in the environment that suits us, but we're going to do our very, very best. And when we can't, we take that in and we adopt that as our self-image. And so what do we end up thinking about ourselves? We end up having imposter syndrome. We have worth issues of not feeling good enough, not measuring up. Then we try to be perfectionists because we really want to fit in with all of the other penguins when we're a lion. And so, as we go on adopting these ideas about ourselves, we're trying really hard to fit in. We're trying really hard to do what people expect of us. And what that means is that our nervous system gets heightened. So we're constantly have this list in our head. I have to sit down. I have to pay attention. I have to do this. I have to do that. And our amygdala senses that as danger. So I am in a chronically dangerous situation because I'm not capable of performing the way everybody else performs. And so I have to pay more attention. I can't think about, all of those other things. I have to pay attention to doing all of these things the way I'm being told to do them. And it takes up a lot of our brain power. I call this having our brain hijacked. So immediately the first thing is that we have extra dopamine that we're having a hard time burning off. And when we do burn it off, we don't like being in that state. That doesn't feel good to us. And so we go dopamining. We're looking for things that will give us that hit of dopamine so that we get back in that state again. And so, as we're in this stress response state of being heightened, trying to do everything the way that we're supposed to do it, what ends up happening is that that puts stress on our body. And of course, stress will lower our serotonin and raise our dopamine even further. And so, in that scenario, then we end up doing even more things that we get in trouble for or that people, frown at us for. And then the whole cycle starts all over again. So, what happens what do we do? Well, we go to a doctor, and a doctor's scope of practice is to find the complaint, the symptom, and offer relief for that symptom. So, if we're complaining about not being able to focus, they will say, "Well, I will give you something that will help you focus." And in this scenario, what helps you focus is more dopamine. So, we're in an increased dopamine state. What we really want to do is bring that dopamine back down so that we're not constantly living in that dopamine state, but it feels good to us to be there because we're used to it. It's just like a child who's grown up in unsafe conditions. When we put them in safety, sometimes their nervous system will go crazy because they're not used to living in safety. And so safety feels unsafe. And that is how we feel as well. When we're in a calm state, it feels unsafe to us because we're used to living in chronically high dopamine. So then we'll go and we'll get a medication and that will raise our dopamine. And then so we will artificially feel as though here we are, we're back in our comfortable state, excuse me, of high dopamine. And then when that crashes and it wears off, then we get exhausted because our body is stressful on our body, right? But that's what doctors do. That's what they know how to do. So if we ask them to help us get to the root cause, well, they're not going to know how to do that because that's not their scope of practice, right? So what do we do? How do we get out of this stopgap band-aid type approach, and get into something that actually is going to benefit us in the long term? So a lot of us will look at therapy, and the problem with that is that most therapies are designed to help us cope. So what are they designed to do? They're designed to take the lion and teach the lion how to survive on an ice floe, right? It's not meant to help the lion get back to its natural habitat. It's meant to teach the lion how to, catch fish and how to swim in cold water. And, so as neurodivergent people, a lot of therapy is helping us to learn how to manage. How do we get up in the morning? How do we take care of our house? How do we do things like neurotypical people do? The problem with that is that we're not neurotypical people. And so we really have to change our beliefs. We have to change our systems. We have to change um, our thought processes and all of those things from from back in the very beginning, so that we start to understand the fact that it's okay to be who we are. And I mean, who is that? We're very charismatic, we're funny, with the life of the party, we think outside the box, we can think quickly on our feet, we have new and unique and brilliant answers to some very tough questions. So who we are is wonderful. The problem comes in when we're so dysregulated with our nervous system and with our neurotransmitters and with our neuroception, which means our safety in our body, and with our neuroplasticity, which means the beliefs that we hold about ourselves. We're so wired to think that we're the problem, and we're so out of sync with ourselves that we are just not in a good place with who we are and our gifts. So for me to come in here and say ADHD is a wonderful thing, that's going to sound really hollow and maybe even offensive to some people. But please understand the position that I'm coming from is that I know what it feels like on the other side. I'm not medicated. Am I late sometimes? Of course I am, because I'm living in an environment that's not built for me. Um, I'm still ADHD, but I don't. I don't have the negative self-image about that anymore, which means that my neurotransmitters are also staying in balance, which means that, my neuroception or my nervous system tendency is still low. So I can handle a little bit of fight or flight without being thrown into a spiral of bouncing back and forth between fight or flight and shutdown. So, if you're still with me, what about to tell you is for educational purposes only. I want you to understand that, excuse me, while I am a practitioner, I am not your practitioner. Anything that I say is just to give you an idea. You can take it to your primary care practitioner. Make sure you get the go ahead before you make any changes in your supplement, diet, or exercise routine, anything to do with your lifestyle. So, one of the things that I would offer for my clients is something called passion flower, and that works on our GABA. It helps to instill a little bit of calm in our day. That is one of the things that we work on. Another thing might be some what we call cofactors for our neurotransmitters, and what that means is that these are nutrients and supplements that our body is depleted in. One of those is the active form of B6, which we call P5P. Another one is zinc. And of course, magnesium. We're chronically depleted in magnesium as a society. And so these components help us build our neurotransmitters. So if we're looking at making more serotonin, producing more serotonin, as opposed to just kind of artificially recycling it with things like SSRIs, then we need these cofactors in our life to be able to create these, and that helps us balance our neurotransmitters. So that's something to talk to your practitioner about. Uh, and then there's some nervous system. I'm doing a video on nervous system as well, but there's some techniques that I use. I talk about them over in my Facebook group a lot. One is a lateral eye movement. One is an art therapy combined with neuroplasticity. That's really, really science-backed. It's very effective. And then I talk about Safe and Sound, which is the polyvagal theory listening program that I use with my own clients. And that is kind of like the gold standard for helping us get our nervous system back in balance. And then we talk about over and over again, we talk about false beliefs. We start at a very young age. We go through a step-by-step process to help us find and fix the beliefs that we have that are kind of running our subconscious patterns that we interact with the world through these false beliefs that we have about ourselves. So we talk about a lot about that over there. I have a step-by-step process that I go through with my own clients. Um, I welcome you to come on over into our free Facebook group and chat about that as much as you like. And I really hope that some of this was helpful to you. I just want to get across that this isn't a life sentence. I can't change the fact that you have ADHD. I don't want to change that particularly because I think that that's actually a wonderful thing when we can get stable. But I want to get across that, there are more options than just A and B. There is an option C. And if you want to explore that, I'm happy to explore that with you. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope you have a great day.